Hello everybody, this video is entitled MSTR Truly Insane Buy, and by truly insane, I mean insane in a good way. I mean billions with a B and an S, billions. What did he buy? Let me call your attention to the insanity, the magnitude of this buy. 2.15 billion he bought worth of Bitcoin. 2.13, right? Absolutely insane buy. This has to be. I know this is a top 5 buy in the history of the company. Top 5. So that's an enormous buy, and that's in a market which frankly is not very good. This stock market is not doing very good. There is, strategy stock is kind of in the gutters right now, and you still managed to buy more than $2 billion. Imagine how well this stock will do. If and when, and I don't know when, but I know that we will. I mean, at least that's my bet. There's no financial advice. When we get back, which I don't know when, but when we get back to a bull market, imagine the sheer insanity that we're going to have from Saylor. The buys are going to get better and better. So this is pretty crazy. Here's another thing that is crazy. Of course, we'll talk about a common ATM in a second, because people who still don't understand the stock are upset about a common ATM. I want to call your attention to Stretch. Stretch, of course, is the iPhone moment for strategy. It is their killer product, as I call it. Stretch is so powerful. In fact, last week was essentially a 4-day week because of the ex-dividend. By the way, this week is also going to be a 4-day week, unfortunately, because of a holiday yesterday. So that really sucks. I'm tired of these 4-day weeks. Stretch needs a 5-day week. So last week we had the ex-dividend. So January 15 wasn't much happening because of the ex-dividend day. But we had a 4-day week. He raised $294 million. Divided by 4, that's $73.6 million a day. Now, on this channel, in my 2 prior videos, here's what I said. I said, I think Stretch could raise about $500 million a week within 6 months, $1 billion a week within a year. We raised, 295. We raised $295 million last week. So that's right, my coverage of MSTR stock on this channel is actually super conservative, because I'm saying he's going to do $500 million a week in 6 months. He's already at $295 million. That's how much he raised, $295 million. So it's possible we're going to get to $1 billion a week much sooner than within year's end, right? I was saying end of 2026, maybe $1 billion a week for Stretch. We might get there much sooner than I think. We might get to $500 million much more quickly than I think. Maybe in February, maybe in March, I don't know. But it's pretty crazy. So actually, I might have been too conservative on Stretch. Note, by the way, the resilience of Stretch. Stretch stretched right back to 100. We are 100.02 right now, and we bounced right back within 60 minutes of market open, and that was on an epic dump day for the market due to the Greenland situation. We have major reds across all U.S. markets right now because of the Greenland tariff situation. Okay, yet Stretch stretched right back to $100 in a matter of 60 minutes, right? In an hour-ish, we were right back to $100. This is just insane. Also note how strategy is actually outperforming Bitcoin today. Now, we know historically this stock is 1.5 times Bitcoin. The IBIT-ETF, Bitcoin's performance today, as seen for the IBIT-ETF, right? Which includes the dump from yesterday, because Bitcoin dropped quite a bit yesterday and Sunday. So we're down 5.5% for Bitcoin, let's call it. And strategy, we're down 6.6%. So really, if we were trading in line the way I would expect strategy to trade, we should be down 8% on strategy. We're not. We're down 6%. So strategy is outperforming Bitcoin on this day because it's a leverage. Well, I don't like that word. It's not a leverage, but it's an amplified play on Bitcoin. we don't use the word leverage because we know on this channel that Saylor has very, very little leverage. Leverage is what the media tells you. We know on this channel that this is mostly a common ATM story, which is what people are upset about. Mostly a common ATM story, which is what I love. Yes, so it's mostly a common ATM story. You can see 1.8 billion proceeds today of last week. 1.8 billion entered MSTR stock as permanent capital. Most of this stock is a story of permanent capital raised through common ATM. There is next to no debt. The debt is actually $8 billion. That's the debt. And even that debt, we can argue whether it's real debt or not because it will equitize, i.e. it will just turn into further MSTR stock dilution to pay off the debt. So is that even real debt? Right? That's a big thing most people don't get about this stock. Anyways, short-term tourists on this stock are likely very much frustrated by the constant ATM. In fact, you know, I don't need to spend too much time on X to see people complain about him printing $1.8 billion worth of common stock, worth of common shares. So the tourists are upset about that. But as you know on this channel, I've always loved the common ATM. I was pretty vocal in my disagreement when I believe some of the community, some of the noise on Twitter forced him to do the infamous, or pushed him, or convinced him to do the infamous 2.5x MNAV, and that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Imagine if in August, when we're trading at like a 1.4 or 1.6 MNAV, imagine if he had kept ATMing instead of spending 6 weeks without using the ATM. That was a mistake. Good leaders correct course. He saw that was a mistake. He corrected that course, and now he's going back full steam at the ATM. Unfortunately, we're not at 1.4 MNAV. We're at 1.06 MNAV right now. But 1.06 is still technically accretive. Not too much. It's about 60 million of quote unquote yield, 60 million of yield per $1 billion raised, but it's still technically accretive. But even if it were a zero, or even if it were slightly negative, I would think this would still be a very, very good thing for strategy, because Saylor is about raising permanent capital. He's trying to raise permanent capital, as much permanent capital as possible, to back the preferreds, because if those preferreds are going to fly, if the debt that Saylor is issuing in the form of Strive, Stretch, Stream, Strike, and Stride, if that debt is going to be in high demand, it needs to be backed more than 1-to-1. It needs to be back, my guess, at the very least 1-to-3. I think over time, as this company gets bigger and as these preferreds get more popular, I think the market will accept a 1-to-3, which is what Saylor has discussed before. So right now, every single piece of permanent capital, every single billion of permanent capital that we have, this will be capital that will be drawn on later to support further issuance of preferreds. And if you look at the BTC rating of the preferreds currently, you can see we are very high. Stride 4.5, 5, 5.6, 6, 8.9, right? So if you buy Strive, for example, that means for each dollar of Strive, there is $8.9 worth of Bitcoin backing it. That's the genius of this, right? And so he has to raise common capital in order to support more issuance of preferreds in the future. And if he wants to revolutionize, of course, the debt market, which is what I believe what he's after. If you want to revolutionize, say, 100 billion in the debt market through the preferred, and remember, he's after much bigger than that, and to disrupt more than that, you're going to have to see Bitcoin go up, and you're going to have to see Bitcoin go up to 250,000, 500,000, and that's where that permanent capital is going to grow, more as we get towards the 2030s, right? As we get in the late 2020s, I expect the permanent capital to grow because Bitcoin grows. But for now, if you want to disrupt for now in 2026, it's a good idea to raise as much permanent capital as you can to issue that debt. And so to give you an example, I think in the short term, it is, I mean, we're at what? We're at 14 billion now. So 14 billion, and that's if you include both, but the prefers, we're only at 8. So I think in the short term, like let's say next 18 months, if he wants to disrupt $100 billion worth of debt, for example, so he wants to issue $100 billion worth of debt, he needs 300 billion of permanent capital. So to get to 300 billion of permanent capital, you're going to need a lot of common ATM, and you're going to need Bitcoin to go up. And to me, this is all very, very bullish. Stretch is the iPhone moment of strategy. Strategy is not just some quote-unquote fund or shell company holding Bitcoin. It is a company that aims to disrupt the credit market. And if you want to disrupt the credit market, you need to create the highest quality credit, and the highest quality credit it is right now because you have 9 times the money backing, nine times the money backing Stretch, right? So it's pretty insane. I think over time the market will accept 3 times the money backing it, and these instruments will trade up. That's my bet. No financial advice. That is my view. I love to see more and more also learned individuals, more and more noted analysts who caught Tesla early, working on strategy and catching on the strategy trade. This stock is not for the short term. This stock is not for tourists. Right? Instruments that are heavily promoted online, like MSTX, is not meant for this stock. This stock is not for options. I know a lot of people like to play with options, but it's you can't predict the short term. Nobody could have predicted what happened over the weekend, and there may be over things like that happen. This has been the nature of the 2020s. Investing in the 2020s has been full of surprises. We've had black swan after black swan after black swan. So we can't predict when Bitcoin's going to 500K, right? But if you own the common stock, which I do, I sleep very, very well at night. I think strategy is executing beautifully, and you should not use the stock price as an indication as to whether the stock is executing or not. The stock price doesn't tell you anything. Look under the hood. This company, in my view, is doing so well. I love it very much, but this is just me. This is just what I do. This is not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment on this channel. I hope you're entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.